BodyBags, where horror lies.
Guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. I'm your regular Wednesday evening host here at BodyBags. It is week 535. It is random, and I am doing this a few weeks beforehand because I've gotten myself out a little bit ahead and trying to think of what I was going to do. I don't know, I just got in the mood. You know how that works. Just got in the mood for some Friday and sort of lasered in on part 3 and went and took a quick look at BodyBags and saw that it was only done once quite a while back, so free for me to do. And I thought, you know what? It's time to take a little bit of a closer look at Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. This movie stands out in the entirety of the franchise. This movie might stand out once you get past the original film. 2 really stand out to me. Obviously, 4 is an awesome film. There's no not getting around that. But in terms of the 2 that really stand out to me personally, I don't know, for whatever reason, 7, of course, Kane Hodder's, but John Buechler's film there that he directed, the special effects, just the aesthetics of Jason and how he looks is pretty awesome. Like some monster out of some forgotten myth, right? But 3 in 3D stands out to me for a few reasons. 1982, my favorite year in film for horror cinema, and just film in general. And I saw this movie. This was the first Friday film I saw in the theater, and of course, it is maybe my most memorable 3D experience in terms of things popping out of the screen, you know, like that, right? And I wish my memories were more crystal, but I do remember the infamous moment when the harpoon comes flying, of course, out of the screen and people duck in. You know, it worked great. There is a reason why Jaws 3, Amityville 3D, those films would come in pretty quick successive order. But the technology used for Friday the 13th was just executed really well. And if anything paid a minor price to it, might have been the what seems to be how the acting comes across. Now, I understand that utilizing this certain camera technology in terms of actors delivering the lines, 2 things were going on. One, you have to be really dead on in your delivery with in terms of the technology and the camera and things working in such a perfect order. And so, it can kind of give it a weird appearance of things just being off. I guess some may interpret that as a bit more cheesy in terms of the Friday films. But also, too, when you watch the documentaries like, is it Crystal Lake Memories? Is that the 5.5 hour, which is on YouTube? And it's not that hard. I think each film gets about a half an hour. It's not that hard to figure out where the films lie. But, watching the segment on part 3, you learn pretty quick that there was no emphasis on the characters, the actors, the actors in their acting. The emphasis was squarely on the 3D technology for, I guess, obvious reasons. This is a make or break deal. I mean, it's got to work. And I can say I have memories of seeing this, and my memories are pretty good in terms of it being a minor highlight in my cinema-going life, which is pretty rich with some memorable experiences. But Friday's also... Friday the 13th is also pretty cool when you consider, this is Steve Miner's second foray, right? He gave us part 2, moves right on into 3, which is pretty cool. But there are Douglas J. White, special effects guy, had an interesting, he is probably the main special effects artist on this film. And he started as early as 72 with Bert Holland and then quickly moved with, some of you may know Joe Blasco's name. And the first major film, I think, was Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. But he'll eventually make his way, on into cinema, working on things like Galaxy of Terror, Parasite, Evil Speak, Return of the Living Dead. And he'll have a buddy with him, Alan A. Pone, and he will found the Makeup Effects Lab, I think it was known as. And uncredited in this movie, you might not know, is Stan Winston, which is interesting. So he had a bit of a little hand in this. And this is one of those cool ones where we do see Jason Inc. In terms of the production company name. This was the first movie. Just get into some trivia related, just interesting things. This was the first film of 82 to knock E.T. off the #1 spot. So what The Thing, unfortunately, couldn't do in the moment, Friday the 13th would do, and that is knock E.T. off his pedestal. I think it was budgeted at 2.2 mil. Eventually, it would bring in around 36 points, so almost 37 mil. Not bad. There's a reason why and it's interesting because the more you delve into this, you realize that 3 really was going to close itself out as a trilogy. And I just wonder where we would be today if all Friday the 13th was a trilogy. And it ends, on this. But obviously we've got the final chapter and all the other movies, right? Martin J. Sadoff, the 3D effects supervisor. Of course, the one maybe most responsible for introducing the iconic hockey mask. It was a red Detroit Red Wings mask, and they were just sort of scrambling. What do we do? What looks good? And he just happened to have a hockey mask on him, and put it on Jason, and it's the rest is history, I guess, as it would be. Just leave if there's anything else. The cinematographer on her, I know him from in terms of He Knows You're Alone, which is a favorite slasher of mine. And Martin Becker, special effects artist here, worked on Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, which is pretty awesome, and later Friday films as well. That's about it for the notes, I think. Just a few interesting minor side note things. So look, everyone has seen this movie a million times. I'm not going to go through the synopsis, but real quick, I'm just going to highlight a few things. I'm going to just act as though everyone has seen this movie a million times. And I'm just going to point out a couple things that I absolutely love about this movie. First of all, the attack on Harold and Edna at the grocery store. It's so cool because it's one of those moments where things seemingly happen outside of the Crystal Lake range. Now, I mean, it's there on the lake and everything. But in the moments of the conclusion of part 2, Jason, for whatever reason, wanders into the backyard of this grocery store. And the rest is history, right? And we sort of get to meet Harold and Edna is just sort of hagging wife or whatever, and Harold seems just to be this guy that can do nothing right, at least in her eyes, can absolutely do nothing right. And it's 2 interesting kill scenes. One with Edna, who gets, I think, a needle through the back of the head, through the eye, and Harold. My God, how does Harold die now? How can I forget how Harold died? I gotta think about this. I just watched this the other night. Harold. Oh man, well, he does die. And that is an interesting. I really do like that. I love how it just feels different, I guess. Yeah, I can't believe I can't remember how Harold dies. God, I'm picturing in my head, but I'm taking way too much time up. I'm seeing it, but the other thing I always found really intriguing about this movie is the character of Chris, and a lot of questions revolve around the attack that happens, as we learn, I think, 2 years prior, right? Now, apparently there's about 5 years between the first Friday film and the events of part 2, so her accident happens with Jason happens 2 years prior, so that puts it about, what, 3 years after the events of the original Friday the 13th. So it's just kind of interesting when you see it kind of like that. It's an interesting moment because it does beg questions of why does Jason let her off the hook? Why does he let her go? Seemingly she just passes out. Does it even really happen? Is it a figment of her imagination? Did she hear too many stories? Even though Jason probably really doesn't have a track record at this point, he's just sort of maybe out there, having seen mom decapitated on the beach. Maybe there's just a growing lore of legend and tradition around Camp Crystal Lake of people seeing weird things, but nothing like major happening, just sort of spooky things, haunted house type things, maybe, perhaps. So is it a figment of her imagination? Did it even really happen? We think it probably happened because when we have our final climax at the end and she sees him take the hockey mask off, and that's such a great moment, immediately she's like, it's you, which I think Chris is such a great final girl. And I know that sort of, got people on both sides of that, but I think she's great. But that whole idea of you got a main character who's haunted by something that has happened to her that she is still psychologically dealing with, right? It's interesting. And Rick's place in all of that, her boyfriend. The supporting cast, Shelley, of course, there's a lot to like there. The infamous hockey mask. The one part about that, though, that I really do enjoy, that infamous moment when he lets the harpoon gun go off, is how he walks away. Richard Brooker, the guy who plays Jason, is, I think he might be the standout. And I know, Kane Hodder, folks, I know, I love him in parts of it. But I don't know, Richard Brooker, man, brings this weird, unique sort of, his weird attributes to Jason. It is still early on in the movies, but it's just how he sort of casually walks away, having just harpooned someone in the head. It's just got a creepy vibe to it. It's interesting. Of course, you got the whole biker gang and everything, right? And how all that goes down. I didn't realize that they actually made the lake there. That is a man-made lake, and everything on the ground they built up themselves, which is pretty cool. The lake apparently presented some issues and problems with them in terms of its structure and whatnot, but they were able to pull it off. The 3D technology, if anything takes a back seat, it might be the characters, the writing, in terms of just the character arcs and whatnot. But Chris brings an interesting arc into this that's it's maybe most enjoyed going back and seeing it again and just seeing it and thinking about all that sort of revolves around that moment in time. I love, of course, who doesn't love the very end, right? And she moves with some deliberateness, when she's got him up there in the barn, and she moves. She doesn't even think about it. She wraps the rope right around his head, pushes him out over the ledge, and boom, bam, he just hangs, right? And then she goes down, and then, of course, she opens up the doors. He's alive, pulls off the mask. He's able to get himself off the rope. And, she thinks this is it. It's over. And then our one of our hero bikers springs into action, ties Michael, right? Ties up Jason just long enough to give Chris the ability to get her hands on that axe. And we know the rest is history, man. She will bury that thing deep in and make an already iconic mask even more iconic by the cut in the top of it. And then, and of course the end moment with our surprise of who jumps out of the lake, right? And ultimately in the end, though, she is driven away. She's alive. She makes it. But she seems a bit loony and when she's right in the middle of that dream sequence there, I love how you see Jason up in the window. It might be one of the creepiest Jason moments in the entire canon, I think, personally. And the way she sees him coming running from the building or the barn or the house, whatever. is freaking epic. And then freaking mom comes up. We assume it's mom, right? Comes up and pulls her under. And in our closing moments, man, she's being driven away. She's a bit loony, and but it's funny listening to Dana Kimmell, who plays Chris in there, listening to her talk about she believes, and no one knows her character any better than she knows her own character, right? But she believes she's a survivor, and she I'm sure with a ton of therapy will get through it and survive. And and Ginny gets away, which is interesting. So two girls successfully, two films ultimately get away from our masked antagonist of the woods, our villain of the woods. So I mean, Friday the 13th Part 3 brings us some interesting things to it that, and you can make the same argument for every movie, but this one being 3D, the first one I saw on the big screen as a kid, my first entry into the world of Friday the 13th, and I would be in the theater. I think, is it like 2 years later? I think for Part 4, the final chapter, and it would just follow the franchise through. So, anyways, here in the week that precedes theme week, which is wokeism be damned. I kind of jumped out a few weeks ahead, just kind of get things done, because I'm going to be looking at Cannibal Holocaust here in this coming up week, and I need to give myself time to kind of revisit that material, that film, in sort of in a really slow, sort of methodical way, so I can really do well with that. It's a tough movie to sit through, and I want to give myself time, right, to do it. So. But Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, maybe outside of the original film, maybe my favorite Friday film. So what's yours? Let me know. Drop it down below. And as always, thank you for your support. And got my Bills fighting for a division championship tonight against Miami. So that tells you right there how old this video is. We'll see if they win. You already know, though, because you're seeing the video now. Perhaps we go to the Super Bowl. Who knows? We'll see. As always, go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
We might be useful to you.